Hey Reluctant Preppers, this is showing you just how easy it is to purchase silver without paying any premium over spot price. You just go to sdbullion.com/rp, scroll down and enter the special code to get silver without any premium, and they'll mail it to your mailbox, discreetly packaged. Inside you'll find a beautiful 10-ounce bar of fine silver, and you are able to purchase that and have it and add it to your stack and your collection without paying any premium. And you're supporting Reluctant Preppers along the way. Thanks.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're always delighted to have this returning guest, Gregory Mannarino. He's the founder of TradersChoice.net. He's an astute observer and active trader in the equities markets and keeps a sharp eye on the bond markets, the precious metals, cryptocurrencies. He's here with us to decipher all of the interconnected, what's making all those tick, and give us some understanding of his perspective on options that people have to take care of business for themselves and their families. Greg, thanks for joining us here again on Reluctant Preppers.
Thanks for having me back. I love your show. Great to be here.
I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts recently, been focusing quite heavily on key leading indicators that you've been watching in the bond market and what it indicates about money flows, what you think that foretells of what's going to be happening in the stock market, and also given what's going on in the precious metals and in cryptocurrencies, you've been recommending some basic strategies and perspectives for people who follow your podcast. If you could just give us kind of the nutshell version of that here for the benefit of our viewers, what in the world does the bond market have to do with the stock market, have to do with precious metals, and why does it all add up to a maybe once in a lifetime opportunity that's setting up here?
Absolutely. This is a great question. And what people need to understand is the bond market, number one, is the largest market of them all. The debt market is humongous. It eclipses the stock market by exponents. Meanwhile, most people will walk around and they're going to focus on what the Dow Jones Industrial Average is doing, and it's a distraction in many ways. It's no secret, it shouldn't be, at least to anyone listening here, and to put a perspective on this, that world central banks have taken, again, the largest part of the market, the debt market, and chosen to now artificially suppress interest rates for nearly a decade now. And for anyone, I think, honestly, who has even two functioning brain cells, they can put this together and say, well, something is very wrong. When you have this kind of action in the largest part of the market, where here's the key, where every other asset, every one that you want to look at, a stock, a house, cryptocurrency, regular currency, precious metals, well, to a certain degree, but their price action is not real. We know that because of many, let's say, nefarious entities out here who have a vested interest in keeping precious metal prices suppressed. But the issue is very simple, that the bond market dictates in a free market the real value for everything else. So the environment we're in has created, it's so difficult even for a person like myself who studies this 24 hours a day, and I'm not lying, around the clock. And I live this. I'm immersed in it. I live and breathe the markets. You know that. It's even hard for me to get my head around the price action of every single asset, starting with the price of debt, because of the artificially suppressed rates, is not real. There's no free market forces behind it. As a matter of fact, I'd go as far as to say this: there's only one asset right now, asset class right now, that has a real price discovery mechanism behind it, and that happens to be cryptocurrency. The rest of it is not real. We have bubbles to the upside, bubbles to the downside, distortions, again, across the spectrum of asset classes, except possibly for cryptocurrencies, although that's debatable too, and that would be a long talk. But I think for the most part, the only real part of this market now would be cryptocurrency, because it's decentralized, and the central banks haven't figured out what to do with it yet. Now, it's kind of interesting, just real quick, let me touch on this, that we know that China is making it very difficult for individuals to acquire Bitcoin. And now we just found out that Russia is doing the same thing. And what happened to Bitcoin today? Well, it just surpassed my target. I put a price target of $5,000 on Bitcoin 5 months ago. I said it was going to 5,000 and beyond. Specifically, there's a whole article I wrote on my Steemit blog. But it's so simple. It's so simple to understand that by watching the action of the bond market, and how do you watch? That's a question I get all the time. I focus on watching the U.S. 10-year yield. And how can you watch the U.S. 10-year yield? Very simple. Most financial websites will have it. You can just go to Market Watch, for example. In the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see a little tab. It says rates. Click on rates, and you can see in real time what the 10-year yield is doing. Now, why is that important? Again, just like what you spoke about at the beginning, well, by watching where money is going or cash is flowing either into or out of bonds, you can see ahead of time what's going to happen in the stock market. As a matter of fact, I outlined this for my listeners several weeks ago. I told everyone that cash was leaving the bond market. It was simply going to look for a place to go. I told everyone it was going to go into the stock market in this environment, and everyone that took heed to that, frankly, lined their pockets with cash. I've been telling people how to take advantage of this. It's just an incredible thing, but most people have no clue of how to do this. If bond yields are rising, the 10-year yield is rising, that means cash is coming out of the bond market. If the 10-year yield is dropping, that means cash is going into it. So by watching the 10-year yield, you could make some pretty accurate calls as to what the stock market is going to do and subsequently capitalize on it. I don't advise people to trade the paper derivatives of gold and silver. Once in a blue moon, I will do this, but they're not real. There's no price discovery mechanism behind it whatsoever because of manipulation by major banks who have a vested interest in keeping these prices low for now. And that's a godsend for people who understand, who maybe have even just one functioning brain cell, where this is all going. This umbrella of debt is a Frankenstein monster that is at one time going to swallow the earth. I don't know another way to put that. The system is not sustainable. It is going to correct the fair value despite what world central banks are trying to do. We do know this, that all bubbles pop regardless of any action to try to keep it sustained. Now, this particular bubble, because we have world central banks working in concert to keep it suspended, is the largest by exponents that we've ever seen. It is going to correct the fair value. When, I don't know. And frankly, all I want to do, and for myself and for people that follow my work, is to capitalize on this, because I think it is the golden age right now for everything. For stackers, you know what you need to do. Bet against the debt, become your own central bank. My two themes since day one. The currency is going to be confetti at one particular time. Holding a hard asset is literally like taking the other side of the trade against the debt. Gold and silver hard assets are the anti-debt. So that's how you protect yourself from the currency market, which is going to, at one particular point, literally turn to confetti. The world central banks are determined to kill their currencies. They're going to do this. By exploding the debt, is going to continue to put pressure on a fiat currency like the U.S. dollar, which has been almost in a screaming downtrend since December. That was the top. We had this little bump here on speculation that the Federal Reserve is going to do something meaningful with regard to raising interest rates or normalizing the balance sheet, neither of which is going to happen in reality. And that's another reason why the market has been doing what it's doing, the stock market. So, you need to have the opposite side of that trade. You need to seek dollar alternatives. My favorite, bar none, is silver. You know that, physical silver. I still stand by what I've been saying for years. It's the most undervalued asset in the history of the world. It doesn't take a lot of cash to acquire these things. These are long-term investments, like I've been saying for years. And you just got to understand why you're holding these things. It's just so important. Again, this market is not that hard to understand. As a matter of fact, we know what they're going to do. We know what the Federal Reserve is going to do before they do it. I've been wrong one time and one time only in all the years that the Fed has been talking about raising rates and what they're going to do. I got it wrong once. So I don't think there's another person out here who knows the Federal Reserve better than I do what they're going to do. It just makes sense to me in some obscure, crazy way. And I try to relay that information to people so they can capitalize on it. That's all I want us to do. I want us to rip the freaking face off of every aspect of this market and jump all over everything like there's no tomorrow, because at one point there isn't going to be. But for now, let's try to make this work for us. There's no reason to sit there like a deer in the headlights and do nothing. Find opportunity and just go after it like a raging bull.
So let's put some flesh on those bones for people who they're with you in principle and in spirit. They don't want to be beholden to the risk that comes with the debt. They see it as a distortion. They see the suppression of precious metals as a distortion. Even they see the inflated stock market as a distortion. But based on what you're saying, let me see if I'll try to recapture what I think I'm understanding. You tell me if I'm on the right track. That despite how far distorted things are, it looks like it's going to go farther before it corrects to fair value. Don't know when that correction will occur, but for now, the trend is rising. Bond yields indicate that that money is leaving the bond market. It's going to go find a home in the stock market. So in general, the already inflated stock bubble is going to continue to inflate. So people could find some way to profit from that rising stock market and take those profits off the table and sock them away into hard assets like the most undervalued class, which would be physical silver at this point.
Yes, yes. This is how it's unfolding now. This is not the way it's going to be longer term. At longer term here, what people need to watch, again, going back to the importance of the bond market, is a rapid sell-off. It's going to happen. Now, this is not just Greg Mannarino saying this anymore. This is Alan Greenspan, former Fed chair, who said that the bond market is in a bubble. This is epic. And, we've been hearing from a lot of people lately who sound a lot like people like you and me and people who understand what's going on here with regard to the debt. And it's a major problem. It's going to unfold in a very, very bad way at one particular time here. We are going to get at one point, and there's no doubt about it whatsoever, a rapid sell-off in the bond market that is going to spike yields very quickly. When that starts to happen, the cash is going to start to move. It's going to go from the bond market. It's going to look for other places to go. But in a rising yield environment, in a rapidly rising yield environment, cash is going to be leaving the stock market in droves. Everyone's going to run to the door at the same time. So you're going to have cash leaving the bond market rapidly, spiking those yields, putting pressure on the stock market. That cash is going to look for somewhere to go. And at that particular point, that cash is going into commodities, real things. So that's how this is going to unfold at one point. But for now, the way things are, and I don't, no one can predict what event is going to trigger this. It could be the most obscure, seemingly mundane thing that's going to start this going. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee everybody that is listening that nobody is smart enough to know what that is going to be, not myself included. Nobody has the slightest clue as to what that is going to be. Again, it might not have anything to do with, let's say, I don't know, something people would expect, like a bank failure or the Federal Reserve getting something wrong. It might be some other thing that's going to seem so innocent. But all it's going to take is that one thing that no one has a handle on to get this going. So that's where we have to be very diligent. Yes, absolutely. Take advantage of this market. It's distorted. It is twisted, but it's going to stay that way for a while. Here's the issue. I've been telling people for the past several weeks, actually since the election of Donald Trump, that this market was going to hit record high after record high after record high. I'm on public record saying that. I was on Greg Hunter's show saying that, and I've nailed that to the wall. Over the past several weeks, the same thing is going on here. However, there's a lot going on here right now with the IMF coming out talking about how 9 major banks of the biggest world banks are in trouble, and they said specifically that regulators need to start looking at these institutions. We're getting set up for another financial crisis. I'm sure your listeners are aware of this, that is going to eclipse the last one by exponents. We're going to get a freezing of the credit markets again, like we had last time, but this time the Fed can't unfreeze them. This time we're done. When that happens, no cash from the banks, gone. Whatever you think you have in there, you're not getting out. It's gonna remain in La La Land or wherever. Maybe it will go to money heaven at that point because it's not real. I always say that cash doesn't go. Money doesn't actually go to money heaven, but in this particular point, it's going to. We're gonna see a death here when the credit markets freeze again, and then they're gonna have to institute some new type of a system at that point, because once the debt bubble bursts, there's no way to reinflate that bubble. The Fed has reinflated a housing bubble, has reinflated a stock market bubble by artificially suppressing these interest rates for the better part of a decade. But once this bubble pops, they have no means to reinflate these again. It's done. The system dies. And a new system will have to be instituted at that point. I don't know what it's going to be. All I know is assets that have held their value for thousands of years are still going to hold their value in the new system. But that's what's coming down the pike here. The one we're in is not sustainable, period. And I am certain that your listeners know that. So all the stuff that I'm talking about, all boils down to, I guess, that. Look, I trade these markets. Everybody knows that. When I like, for example, let's just put a perspective on this. I told everyone 2 days ago on my Steemit blog to start watching the financials. I said something didn't look good. Today, the financials got hammered. I was short Goldman Sachs. It was down 1% today. I was short Citigroup. It finished down almost 3.5%. And the option, I mean, that's a huge move. We're talking about it did a profit of probably close to 40%. In a matter of just 2 days, and I don't think it's over yet. So what am I going to do? What is Greg Mannarino going to do with that? I keep a certain amount of money in my trading account. Once it exceeds that amount, I remove cash and I convert that into hard assets. I've been doing this for years. This is what I will continue to do. I don't allow my trading account to continue to grow past a certain amount. Once in a while I do. It depends. But for the most part, I pull my profits when I hit a certain part. I pull my money out. I pay my bills. I do what I have to do. And then I take a certain percentage of that and I invest it into a hard asset, gold and silver. I also own palladium. I own platinum as well. I own all the metals. And I continue to add to that, to my stash of these. And I will continue to do that. But this is how I make this work for me. It's not that hard, but people need to take action. People can't sit there like a deer in the headlights. I mean, with Bitcoin, for example, I've been telling people to start buying this thing from, I think when it was $1,800. When it hit 28 or 2,700, I told everyone it was going to 5,000. Which it just hit. It surpassed that. Now I'm telling everyone here it's going to 10,000. I am certain it is going to 10,000. So, there's more opportunity for people to get involved in this. So you don't have to buy one Bitcoin at 5,000. You could buy this in fractions. And I know it may seem like tulip mania to people, and perhaps it is tulip mania, but who cares? I could promise you that, I don't know, if the price of staplers, for example, all of a sudden started skyrocketing, I would go out and I'd buy a whole bunch of staplers. Even if it was whatever the asset might be, pens, I don't know, pieces of rope. I have no idea, wigs. Anything. I don't care what it is. If there's opportunity there, I'm going to jump on it. And people seem to take offense when I say these things. And I look, nobody out here is a bigger advocate for holding hard assets than I am. But I can promise everyone that is listening to me that I am a businessman, which means if I see an opportunity, I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to tell all of you what I think you should be looking at, or I'll tell you more specifically what I'm doing, because that's what I do. And I do this for free. So I want people to take advantage of it and say, look, Greg's record's been pretty good. Maybe I should listen to this guy. So I don't know. This is the way I see it. I don't care where the opportunities are. I really don't care. I don't care where the market goes. If the market's going to go down, I'm going to short it. If the market's going to go up, I'm going to buy calls. If the next big thing is going to be pencil erasers, then I'm going to buy pencil erasers. I don't care what it is. I'm going to capitalize on that and convert that into hard assets. And even in a worst case scenario, this does not mean anything. I believe sincerely that we could face global pandemonium when the financial system locks down, the credit markets freeze, because they're going to. Once again, the Fed is powerless. World central banks are done. Their only product is debt. They cannot issue more debt when the bubble itself exists in the form of debt. So that's it. We are going to face a moment here of absolute lawlessness, absolute craziness on the streets, where people are going to do whatever they got to do to survive at one particular time. Now, I'm not the greatest person in the world when it comes to, I do have a stash of food and stuff, but I don't even think that is, in a worst case scenario, is going to be able to help everyone when everybody out there is trying to feed their family, feed themselves, acquire things. Once this happens, once the credit markets freeze, that means there's no food being delivered. That means there's no gasoline. That means there's no anything. Everything shuts down. Cell phones, gone. Everything, just over. It'll be like going back to the Stone Age, Mad Max. In a worst case scenario. And I cannot see a way out of not going into a worst case scenario. And if Greg is wrong, which I sincerely hope I am, at least if you are prepared for it, hey, did it really hurt anybody? Absolutely not. But if it comes, at least you're ready and you have the best chance of getting through what I believe is going to sweep the globe here, and that is pandemonium, when the financial system as we know it no longer exists.
If people really want to home in on following your actions and your perspective, where can they get the closest feed on that?
Go to my website, traderschoice.net. I post my videos there. There's links to everything that I do. I write articles on Steemit every single business day, sometimes more than one. You can follow all my work on my website. I also offer some free things you can download. They're absolutely free. I don't ask for anything. I just want people to understand what's going on here, how to capitalize on this, how they can best protect themselves moving forward. And look, like I said, it's not that hard to at least from a financial standpoint, to try to get yourself set up. And I am more than certain that some people on your show could teach me a thing or two with regard to, prepping. I have some stuff, like I said, but I know I could do better. I probably don't live in the best area. I live out here in Las Vegas. And I think when the stuff really hits the fan, I'm probably not in a great spot out here. But I do have a lot of friends, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
But the part that you bring to the party is the ability for people to see new options that they may not have learned anywhere else, on how they can generate cash now to be able to increase their preparedness.
Yeah, I would like to think that's true.
So on Steemit, do they just look for you by name?
It's called Market Report, one word, @Market Report. If you just go to Google and you did Gregory Mannarino, Steemit, STEEMIT, or just go to my website, there's links to my blog there. I post everything on Steemit. All my videos are on Steemit. All my articles are on Steemit. If I were not Greg Mannarino and I wanted to follow Greg Mannarino, I'd probably go to Steemit first. Everything I do is there.
Okay. Well, Greg, any final thoughts before we let you go?
I just want people to act. I don't want people to sit there frozen and do nothing. I want people to understand where the opportunities are, take advantage of them, and use this whole twisted thing as a weapon against those who are trying to weaponize the system against us.
And the way that you propose doing that is basically see what the money flow indicates they are doing and do likewise, but to profit from it. So
exactly. I mean, I wrote an article. I it was in a book I wrote a while back. I wrote a bunch of publications. I don't even remember what the title of it was. It was a whole theory about the fluidity of money. By just watching the way the cash is moving, you can predict very accurately, not 100% of the time, but most of the time, of what's going to happen next. And that's what this is all about. Look, I make mistakes. When I'm trading, not all of my trades are successful. Some of them are abysmal. But if I can stay on the winning side most of the time by following some basic trading strategies, which I outline in my free ebook that you can get from my website, if you follow this, and you don't try to deviate from it, and you don't try to second guess yourself, you will make money in this market. It's just a matter of discipline. And even myself, from time to time, I lose that perspective. I let emotions get in the way. And that's one thing I think that everyone has to learn, is to not let their passions become their masters. If you can do that in any aspect of life, you'll be a lot better off, especially in trading.
Words for the wise, and I've got some scars from the past to correlate that too, so I completely agree. And Greg, we're just always grateful for your presence here with us on Reluctant Preppers. And everyone, take a look at Greg's free ebook available on traderschoice.net. Check him out at Market Report. It's on Steemit. And Greg, thank you once again, as always, for joining us here on Reluctant Preppers.
Great to be here. Thank you.